On May 30th, 2012, at the Hemet High School, 18-year-old Daniel Carillo was driving his 94 Ford pickup truck. He was westbound on Stetson. He entered the intersection of Stanford at a high rate of speed. We estimate the speed of his vehicle in excess of 50 miles an hour. Mr. Carillo approached the high school crosswalk at Bulldog Way on a red signal light. As he approached that red signal light, he passed numerous cars, entered the crosswalk as students were crossing the roadway. There were approximately 30 people in the crosswalk. 8 of those people were struck in the intersection. 3 of them critically. 8 of them went to the hospital. To this date, 1 remains in the hospital with a serious head injury. The other 7 have been released to go home. A single student that's still at Riverside Regional Hospital is Helen Richardson, and I spoke with her mother this morning. She indicates that although she remains in serious condition, the Riverside Regional Hospital staff indicate that her prognosis is good and she's making progress. We hope for the best. The CHP has called this press conference to let everyone know, staff know, media, that this incident is not an accident. It's a collision. It's an avoidable act. And based on our thorough investigation, we've determined that the driver, Daniel Carillo, was driving at an excessive speed. The speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Based on the evidence we have, videotape and witness statements, we put his speed in excess of 50 miles an hour in a school zone. He also failed to stop at the red signal light and entered a crosswalk where students were crossing illegally. Carillo has previously reported to some that his brakes had failed. He gave that statement to us and our investigating officers. We impounded his vehicle and performed a full mechanical inspection on that vehicle. We've determined that the inspection of the truck, the mechanical condition was not a contributing factor to the collision. Our investigators are in communication with the Riverside District Attorney's Office and in regards to the filing of criminal charges. And while those specific charges have not been chosen yet, they are serious, and there will be news media will be notified on those charges on the driver, David Carillo. On a side note, the driver that was driving the pickup truck, David Carillo, had only held his license for 15 days prior to the collision. He'd been licensed for 15 days prior to the May 30th collision. At this time, if there's any questions from any of you guys. The truck is still being held, and it's being held as impounded for evidence. The district attorney wants to go over that truck, and prior to the release of that vehicle, the district attorney wants to have access to it. So we're holding it for another 2 weeks.
Is there a timetable for when charges might be filed, or is that up to the DA's office?
We're in conjunction working with the DA's office. We expect those charges will be filed by the end of the week.
The driver you said was 18, not 19.
He is 18 years old. His name is David Carillo. He holds a regular full driver's license. Because he's 18, he didn't have to go through that probationary period or provisional period that most students have to go through, where they can't have other students in the car. As you know from previous news releases, there were 2 people in the car. One of them was his twin brother, and another one was a school friend. And both of those, all 3 of those students were in that pickup truck at the time of the collision.
He's out of custody?
Yeah, he has not been arrested. And once the district attorney and our investigators have chosen the charges, then we'll go forward at that point.
Do you anticipate an arrest?
We do anticipate an arrest.
Did alcohol or drugs played any contributing factor?
No, our investigators at the scene thoroughly talked to and worked with the driver, who was cooperative at the time, and no drugs or alcohol were determined to be the cause.
Has he been fully cooperative throughout the investigation over the last 5 or 6 days?
He has been cooperative, but he's a teenager, so we are taking that into account. He hasn't been 100% truthful.
How old is Helen?
Helen is check. I believe Helen's 16. Helen is 15.
15. So, do
Right.
you know she's a freshman then?
She's a sophomore.
She'll be a sophomore
She
next
will
year.
be a sophomore, yes.
And you mentioned her mother said that she was slowly improving, becoming a little bit more responsive, you said?
Right. Helen has serious head injuries, and I saw her on Friday, talked to her mother, and then I spoke with her mother this morning, and she indicates the prognosis is good. While we don't, head injuries are serious, we don't really know the outcome. She's got a positive outlook from her medical staff. So,
What was her mother's name?
her mother's name, I'll have to get to that afterwards. I can't recall this time.
When were the other students released from the hospital?
The other students were released at varying times. Some were in the hospital for only a few hours. On Saturday, a student was released. Her name is Yasina Estrada. She was released on Saturday.
So does only one remain in the hospital?
One remains in the hospital, yes.
At this point, is there any reason to believe this was malicious, or was this just being a teenager showing off, doing what teenagers do?
Well, as we talked about before, this is not an accident. It's a
Okay.
traffic collision. Traffic collisions are avoidable, and we do believe that there's negligence as far as his driving that contributed to this incident. So those factors are included in the criminal report that will be sent to the district attorney's office.
So sorry, could you give me, I'm sorry that I arrived a couple minutes late, a little
Sorry.
bit of a the rundown that you gave them, the rundown of what happened, who's been released since, and whether charges are pending?
Sure. The only student that's still in the hospital is Helen Richardson. I'll give you an overview.
Sorry.
I'll give you an overview before you leave today. Helen Richardson is still in the hospital with some serious injuries, although her prognosis is better than before. She still remains in the hospital. She's the only student of 8 that are still there. The charges, while we're working with the district attorney's office to determine those charges, they are serious, but we haven't quite determined which ones they're going to be. So once those are, we've determined which charges are going to be filed, we'll let everybody know. Another press release.
And she's at Riverside County Regional?
Helen is at Riverside Regional Medical Center, the trauma center in Moreno Valley.
When was the last time you can remember seeing like this large group of children hit by a vehicle when you drive?
I've been on the patrol for 14 years, and while we've had some mass casualty incidents, nothing like this where it happened in front of a school. And that makes it's serious anytime anyone's injured, but this makes it even more critical. It was a few days before the school ended, and students, last thing they were thinking about is getting run over just before they went on summer break.